Mia wiped the sweat from her forehead as she rushed between tables at Bella's Bistro, a small but busy restaurant. She had been working here for 2 years, always putting in extra effort, but her boss, Mr. Reynolds, never seemed to notice. That evening, a scruffy man walked in. His clothes were old and tattered, and he carried a backpack that had seen better days. Other waiters sneered, avoiding his table, but Mia grabbed a menu and approached with a warm smile. "Welcome to Bella's Bistro. What can I get for you?" The man hesitated, his eyes scanning the menu nervously. "Just water, please." Mia's heart clenched. She knew he couldn't afford a meal. Without thinking twice, she placed an order for the house special and used her own tip money to pay for it. When she served him the steaming plate, his eyes widened in disbelief. "This is for me?" he asked. Mia nodded. Everyone deserves a good meal. From across the room, Mr. Reynolds watched, his expression turning stormy. He stormed over. "Mia, a word, now." In the back office, he crossed his arms. "Did you just give away free food?" Mia lifted her chin. "I paid for it myself." Mr. Reynolds' eyes narrowed. "That's not how we do things here. You're fired." Mia's stomach dropped. Fired for helping someone? As she left, the man she had helped watched silently, his expression unreadable. Mia sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the termination notice in her hands. Her heart still pounded from last night's events. Fired, just like that, all for helping someone in need. Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them away. She had always believed kindness mattered. Now it felt like the world had punished her for it. Her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. Hesitantly, she answered. "Hello? Is this Mia Carter?" a deep voice asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "I need to meet you. Bella's Bistro, 10 a.m. Before she could ask anything, the call ended. Confused but curious, Mia got dressed and made her way to the restaurant. As she approached, she saw him, the scruffy man from last night, now standing beside a sleek black car. But something was different. His posture was straighter, his clothes crisp and expensive. Mia froze. What was happening? He smiled. "I owe you an explanation. My name is Daniel Whitmore. I'm the CEO of Whitmore Enterprises. Last night, I was undercover testing your restaurant." Mia's breath caught. "Undercover?" "Yes, I do this often, to see how my partner businesses treat people. What you did last night." He paused. "It showed me who you really are." Mia swallowed. "And who am I?" "A person with integrity." Daniel's gaze was steady. "That's why I have an offer for you, one that could change your life." Mia's heart pounded. "What kind of offer?" Daniel smiled. "How would you like to be the manager of this restaurant?" Mia's jaw dropped. "Manager? Me?" Daniel nodded. "You've shown leadership, compassion, and honesty, qualities a good manager needs." Mia's mind raced. She had worked at Bella's Bistro for years, but never imagined being in charge. "But I was fired." "That was a mistake," Daniel said firmly. "The owner failed the test. He valued power over people. That's why I'm taking over this restaurant." Mia gasped. "You're buying it?" "Yes, and I need someone I can trust to run it." It felt like a dream. Just yesterday, she had lost everything. Now, she had a chance at something bigger. But doubts crept in. "What if I fail?" Daniel smiled. "I don't believe you will. But if you do, we learn and grow. That's what true leadership is." Mia took a deep breath. This was more than just a promotion. It was a test of her own courage. She thought about all the time she had sacrificed for this job, the unfairness of being fired, and the kindness that had led her here. She looked Daniel in the eye. "Okay, I'll do it." Daniel extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Manager Mia." As she shook his hand, she felt something she hadn't in a long time, power over her own future. But she had no idea that her first day as manager would bring challenges she never expected. Mia arrived at Bella's Bistro early the next morning, dressed in a crisp new uniform. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders. She wasn't just a waitress anymore, she was in charge. As she stepped inside, the staff froze. Some looked shocked, others annoyed. Jessica, a senior waitress, crossed her arms. "What are you doing here? Thought you got fired." Mia took a deep breath. "I did, but Mr. Grant is the new owner, and he made me manager." A murmur spread through the staff. The head chef, Marco, scoffed. "You? Managing us?" Mia met his glare. "Yes, and I know it's unexpected, but I want to work with you, not against you." Jessica snorted. "You think you can just step in and change things?" "I'm not here to change everything overnight," Mia said calmly. "But I do want to make this place better, for the customers and for us. Marco folded his arms. So what's your big plan, boss? Mia hesitated. She hadn't thought that far ahead, but then she remembered why she got this chance in the first place. Respect, fairness, teamwork, she said firmly. I won't treat anyone the way I was treated, Jessica scoffed. We'll see. Before Mia could respond, the front doors swung open. A furious voice rang out. You've got to be kidding me! Mia turned and felt her stomach drop. It was Mr. Carter, the former owner, and he didn't look happy. Mr. Carter stormed into the restaurant, his face red with fury. His expensive suit and polished shoes contrasted sharply with the shocked expressions of the staff. He pointed a finger directly at Mia. You think you can run my restaurant? He spat. Mia squared her shoulders, refusing to be intimidated. It's not your restaurant anymore, Mr. Carter. Mr. Grant is the new owner, and he appointed me as manager. Mr. Carter scoffed, shaking his head. This is a joke. A waitress running Bella's Bistro? You'll ruin everything I built. Jessica and a few other employees watched with uncertainty. Some seemed almost amused, waiting to see what would happen. Mia kept her voice steady. With all due respect, Mr. Carter, the restaurant was already falling apart under your management. Staff were overworked and underpaid, customers complained, and morale was at an all-time low. Mr. Grant wants to change that. Mr. Carter smirked. You think you're some kind of hero? Listen, little girl, you don't have what it takes to manage a place like this. Mia clenched her fists but didn't waver. Then why did Mr. Grant choose me? The former owner's expression darkened. Because he doesn't know what he's doing. But I do, and I guarantee you won't last a week in this position. He turned to the staff. Anyone who follows her is making a mistake. Silence hung in the air. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, to everyone's surprise, Marco, the head chef, stepped forward. I don't know about you, Carter, but I'm willing to give her a chance. Mia's eyes widened. Jessica looked torn. Mr. Carter's nostrils flared. This isn't over, he hissed before storming out. Mia exhaled. The battle had just begun. The restaurant was silent after Mr. Carter stormed out. Mia's heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay composed. She turned to the staff, sensing their hesitation. I know this is a big change, she began, her voice steady. I won't pretend to have all the answers overnight, but I promise you this. I will treat everyone with respect, and we will make this restaurant better together. Marco, the head chef, nodded approvingly. That's more than Carter ever did. Jessica, Mia's former coworker, crossed her arms. So what now? You're just going to start running things like a pro? Her tone was skeptical, but there was no malice. Mia took a deep breath. I need your help. You all know this restaurant better than anyone. I want to hear what's really going on, what needs to change, what's working, and what isn't. The staff exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they started speaking up. The schedule is a mess, said a server. We get slammed with shifts, then barely get any the next week. The kitchen needs better equipment, Marco added. Half of our burners don't even work right. Jessica sighed. And the tipping system? It's totally... The next morning, Mia arrived at Bella's Bistro earlier than anyone else. She wanted to be prepared. Today, she was no longer just a waitress. She was the manager. She spread out the work schedules, making sure no one was overworked or underpaid. Then she listed all the kitchen equipment that needed fixing. Finally, she drafted a message for Mr. Grant about revising the tipping system. By the time the staff arrived, she was ready. All right, team, Mia said, gathering them in the break room. I've made a few changes. Starting next week, the schedule will be fairer, no one will be overloaded, and everyone will get a balanced number of shifts. A murmur of approval rippled through the group. What about the broken burners? Marco asked. I've sent a request to Mr. Grant for repairs, Mia replied. Until then, we'll rearrange the workflow so the working burners handle the high-volume orders. Jessica raised an eyebrow. And the tipping system? Mia took a deep breath. I've proposed a fairer system where tips are divided based on hours worked and performance, not favoritism. The room fell silent. Then Marco grinned. That actually sounds good. Jessica nodded. Better than before, at least. Mia smiled, but she knew the hardest part was yet to come. Mr. Carter was still lurking, and she had no doubt he would try to sabotage her. But she wasn't backing down. Let's make this place better together, Mia said, meeting their eyes. Are you with me? One by one, the team nodded. She had their trust. Now, she just had to prove she was the right person for the job. Mia barely had time to settle into her new role before the first major challenge hit. Lunch hour was always the busiest time at Bella's Bistro, but today it felt like chaos. Orders were backed up, customers were getting impatient, and the kitchen staff was overwhelmed. Mia quickly assessed the situation. The kitchen's broken burners were slowing everything down, and there weren't enough waiters on the floor. Taking a deep breath, she sprang into action. Jessica, you take tables 6 through 10. Marco, focus on the larger party at table 3, she directed. I'll handle the rest and help in the kitchen when needed. Jessica hesitated. You're the manager now. You shouldn't have to wait tables. Mia gave her a determined look. Right now, we all need to do what it takes to keep this place running. She grabbed a notepad and rushed to a waiting couple. I'm so sorry for the delay. Can I take your order? The couple nodded, seeming relieved. Mia took their orders swiftly and moved on to the next table. In the kitchen, she saw Marco struggling to plate dishes quickly. She rolled up her sleeves and helped arrange the plates. Then, just as things started to smooth out, a sharp voice cut through the restaurant. What is going on here? Mia turned to see Mr. Carter stepped further into the restaurant, his sharp eyes scanning the chaos that was finally settling under Mia's control. He smirked, arms crossed. So, this is how you run a restaurant? He sneered. The staff running wild, the manager playing waitress? Mia kept her expression calm. The customers are being served, and the kitchen is back on track. We had a setback, but we handled it. Mr. Carter scoffed. Handled it? I see mistakes everywhere. Table 5 hasn't gotten their drinks, and Table 7 waited too long for their appetizers. He turned to the customers. Didn't you? The couple at Table 7 hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Mia's stomach tightened. He was right about the delays, but only because of the issues the restaurant already had. Issues that existed long before she took over. She took a steady breath. I apologize for any delays. We're working to improve service, and I appreciate your patience. Mr. Carter's smirk widened. We'll see if your improvements last. Then he turned to a busboy. Watch your step, kid. A second later, the busboy tripped over a loose tile, sending a tray of glasses crashing to the floor. Water and broken shards scattered everywhere. Mr. Carter shook his head. What a mess. And this is your leadership, Mia? Mia's heart pounded. He was setting her up to fail. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to stay calm. Accidents happen, but we take responsibility and fix them. She grabbed a broom and started cleaning. Mr. Carter just smirked. Let's see how long you last. Mia had a bad feeling. This wasn't over. Mia worked tirelessly, ensuring that the restaurant stayed afloat despite Mr. Carter's looming presence. Every time she fixed one problem, another seemed to pop up. The kitchen ran out of key ingredients. Orders were mysteriously misplaced. A customer complained about finding a hair in their food, something Mia knew was planted. She wasn't naive. This wasn't just bad luck. Someone was sabotaging her. As she walked past the storage room, she overheard whispers. Mr. Carter said to make her slip up again. If she fails, she's gone. Mia's blood ran cold. She stepped inside, and the two employees, one of them the assistant manager, froze. You're working against me, she asked, voice steady but filled with disbelief. The assistant manager, Greg, smirked. We're just doing what's best for the restaurant. No, Mia said firmly. You're doing what's best for Mr. Carter. Greg shrugged. Call it what you want. You won't last the week. Mia's fists clenched. We'll see about that. She stormed out, her mind racing. She needed proof, something to expose Mr. Carter and his underhanded tactics. That night, she installed a small voice recorder near the storage room. If they plotted again, she'd catch them in the act. The battle wasn't over. If Mr. Carter wanted, Mia barely slept that night, her mind racing with possibilities. If she had proof of Mr. Carter's sabotage, she could finally fight back. The next morning, she retrieved the voice recorder. Her heart pounded as she pressed play. Greg's voice came through first. She's still here. Carter's not happy. Then another voice. We need something bigger. Maybe a health code violation? Mia's breath caught. That was it. That was the proof she needed. She rushed to Ms. Williams' office, gripping the recorder tightly. Ms. Williams, I need to show you something. The owner looked up, curious. Go on. Mia placed the recorder on the desk and pressed play. As the voices filled the room, Miss Williams' expression hardened. When the recording ended, she sat in silence, absorbing it all. "This is serious," she finally said. "If Mr. Carter is behind this, it's more than just sabotage. It's a betrayal." Mia nodded. "I knew something was wrong, but I needed proof. Now we have it." Williams exhaled, shaking her head. "I trusted him for years. I need to handle this carefully." "What do we do next?" Mia asked. Miss Williams met her gaze, determination burning in her eyes. "We set a trap." Mia's heart raced. The tables were finally turning. Tomorrow they'd catch Mr. Carter red-handed. The plan was simple but effective. Miss Williams instructed Mia to act as if nothing had changed. Meanwhile, she had her legal team review the recording, preparing to confront Mr. Carter at the right moment. That afternoon, Mia went about her usual tasks, pretending to be unaware of the plot against her. But inside, she was brimming with anticipation. She noticed Greg and another employee whispering near the kitchen. Their hushed voices and glances in her direction confirmed her suspicions. Something was about to happen. Ms. Williams had secretly installed security cameras near the storage area. If Mr. Carter attempted to plant evidence or tamper with anything, they would catch him in the act. Mia's pulse quickened when she saw Mr. Carter himself walking toward the storage room. She discreetly texted Ms. Williams, "He's making a move." From her office, Ms. Williams watched the security feed. Mr. Carter glanced around before pulling a small bag from his pocket. He bent down near the dry goods shelf, shoving it behind a box of flour. Then he pulled out his phone, likely about to report a violation. Ms. Williams stormed into the storage room with 2 security officers behind her. "Mr. Carter," she said coldly, making him freeze mid-text. "Step away from that shelf." His face drained of color. "Ms. Williams, this isn't what it looks like." "Oh, I know exactly what it is," she interrupted, crossing her arms. "And I have it all on camera." Mia appeared in the doorway, her arms folded. Mr. Carter looked between them, his confidence crumbling. For the first time, Mr. Carter's face twisted in panic as he glanced at the security officers flanking Ms. Williams. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. "I was just—" "Just what?" Ms. Williams cut him off. "Placing illegal substances in my restaurant to frame an innocent employee?" Mia stepped forward, her voice steady. "You tried to ruin my life just because I helped someone in need, and now you're about to face the consequences." Mr. Carter's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but there was none. Miss Williams turned to the security officers. "Escort him to my office. I want every employee to see what happens when you abuse your power." As they dragged him away, Greg, who had been lurking nearby, tried to slip out unnoticed. But Mia spotted him. "And where do you think you're going?" Greg stiffened. "I didn't know what he was planning." "Save it," Miss Williams snapped. "We'll be reviewing every bit of footage, T. If you had any part in this, you'll be out the door next." Greg gulped and fell silent. By now, employees had gathered, whispering among themselves. The energy in the restaurant shifted. Justice was being served, and everyone could feel it. Ms. Williams addressed the staff. "Let this be a lesson. I won't tolerate corruption or cruelty in my establishment. Those who work hard and act with integrity, like Mia, will always be valued here." Mia felt a lump rise in her throat. Just yesterday, she had been humiliated and discarded. Now, she stood tall, watching the man who wronged her finally answer for his actions. And it wasn't over yet. Mia stood in the center of the restaurant, still processing everything that had just happened. The employees whispered among themselves, glancing at her with admiration. A day ago, she was just a waitress. Now she had exposed corruption and stood victorious. Ms. Williams turned to Mia with a warm smile. "You've shown strength, honesty, and courage in the face of adversity. Those are the qualities of a true leader." Mia blinked. "I just did what was right. And that's exactly why you deserve this." Miss Williams took a deep breath. "Mia, I'd like to officially offer you the position of restaurant manager." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mia's eyes widened. "Me? Manager?" Miss Williams nodded. "You've proven you care about this place and the people in it. That's the kind of leadership we need." Mia hesitated. Just a day ago, she was barely scraping by. Could she really step into this role? But then she thought about everything she had endured, the humiliation, the betrayal, the fight for justice. She had come this far. Why stop now? She lifted her chin and smiled. "I'd be honored." A round of applause erupted from the staff. Even Greg, looking guilty, clapped along. The weight that had been on Mia's shoulders all this time suddenly lifted. Ms. Williams placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Come. The next morning, Mia walked into the restaurant, not as a waitress, but as the new manager. The air felt different. For the first time, she wasn't just another employee trying to survive. She was here to lead. Miss Williams greeted her in the office with a warm smile. Ready for your first day? Mia nodded, though nerves still tingled in her stomach. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Miss Williams said. Now let's talk about some changes. Over the next hour, they discussed policies to make the restaurant a better place, fair schedules, respectful treatment, and opportunities for growth. It was everything Mia had wished for when she was a waitress. Now, she could make it happen. When she stepped onto the floor, the staff gathered. Listen up, everyone, Mia called out. I know things have been rough, but that changes today. No more unfair treatment, no more toxic work culture. We're a team, and I'll make sure every one of you is treated with respect. A round of applause erupted. Later that day, as she walked past table 5, the one she had served the undercover boss at, she paused. Just a day ago, she had been humiliated here. Now she had reclaimed her power. Greg approached hesitantly. Mia, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Mia studied him, then nodded. Make sure it never happens again. He nodded, looking down. As she looked around the restaurant, she realized this wasn't just a job anymore. It was her chance to change lives, just as hers had changed. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring content. What would you have done in Mia's situation? Let us know in the comments. And remember, sometimes the toughest moments lead to the biggest victories. Stay strong, stay kind, and keep believing in yourself.